How's it going, Critter Family? I hope you all are doing well. A couple things. If you hear crunchies in the background, crunching, that's Hermes eating his crunchies. Secondly, I'm still very nasally, if you couldn't tell. This sickness just does not want to go away, or at least the symptoms don't. So apologies for that. But we're looking at what seems to be a knowledgeable, stand-up kind of guy. His name is Glasgow from Glasgow's Dog Training. If you've never seen him or heard of him before and you want to go check him out, of course, by all means, go check him out, subscribe, support him. He has surprisingly few subscribers compared to what I would expect. He seems very knowledgeable and very, he seems like he definitely has a message to get out there. And so I'm all for supporting that kind of thing. So we're just looking at part of his video where he talks about this saying that a lot of people say, some dogs need a heavier hand. Really? Which is absolutely my point. It's just an excuse, as he explains himself, that it is an excuse. So we're gonna get into this. We're just gonna look at the a little bit of his video to see what he has to say about the subject.
So you'll hear this thing. All dogs are different. We can't treat all dogs the same. And it's usually an excuse.
It's an excuse for lack of experience or lack of understanding or education. It's people who want to say, oh, I've been working in this for 50 years, while you have 1 year of experience 50 times. You've done the same thing over and over and over and over again. You have not learned. Versus, I've only been doing this now 9 years professionally, and I have 9 years of experience one time. I've learned throughout those 9 years. When my Shiba was still around, I've learned from him for 12 years. 12 years, 1 month, and 4 days to be exact. And we're coming up in 2 days, I believe. In 2 days will be his 6-month anniversary since my good boy crossed the Rainbow Bridge. But another other good news, and this is a tangent, sorry. Today is Hermes' birthday. He turns 5 years old today, so maybe I'll put up a cute picture of him. But yeah, so, with good with the bad. But anyway, yeah, that's just an excuse saying that, oh, some dogs need different methods, and by definition, positive reinforcement, you can't fail with it because you're reinforcing whatever behavior you want. You're continuing to support and get this behavior by using something positive to pair it with. And he'll explain a little bit more about that.
More aversive training methods. So people turn around and say, well, you can't train a Malinois or a working line German Shepherd the same way as you can train a Chihuahua. Or positive reinforcement training is fine for trick training or for easy behaviours like with little dogs like Bichons, but not for the hardline working dogs.
Why?
Okay.
Why can't you use that? Has anybody ever tried? Which I know they have. There's probably thousands of people who've tried and are successful in it, and we know because there's proof. Why is it that to become an animal behaviorist, you have a PhD, you have a master's degree, you have a lot of schooling and animal science and understanding of animals, that they all say you do not, whether it's an animal behaviorist or a veterinary behaviorist, they all say you do not use aversive techniques with aggressive or fearful dogs. Why? Because it makes it worse. Go figure.
So there's a paradox there, okay? Because the rules of, the laws of learning are universal to all species.
Yep.
Behaviours which are reinforced reoccur. Behaviours which are not reinforced extinguish. And behaviours which are punished, okay, reduce.
So, a quick example of that, and he may give one as well, but I want to give a quick example. Reinforcing, I always like to say, think of it as you're rewarding a certain behavior. So, take a dog that jumps, for instance, okay? If a dog jumps and you're a person who's okay with the dog jumping to say hello, then you pet them, you give them attention, you're rewarding this behavior, you're reinforcing. So you're rewarding, therefore, it's going to keep going. So they're going to keep jumping on everyone they see. If you're teaching the dog not to jump because you don't like it, or it doesn't necessarily bother you, but you don't care, but you don't want it, the dog can jump, you can ignore them, standing there, you can turn your back, you can, go into another room. The dog doesn't get any attention from doing that. So say the dog is jumping on you, you're just standing there talking, you ignore him, they get down, and then they get attention. So jumping was not rewarding, and therefore not reinforcing. If that same dog jumps on you, you knee them in the chest, or you punch them in the head, or you slap them, or you say, no, blah, blah, blah. It has to be enough of a punishment because some dogs will take any attention as good attention. So if a dog jumps and you say no and you start pushing them, that can become a game, that can be reinforcing. But if you hurt them or scare them enough, clap your hands or do whatever, I don't suggest doing any of that, the dog is going to stop jumping on you. Only as long as the threat of punishment is still there. So say the dog jumps on you, you punch him in the head once, 6 months down the line, they've stopped jumping on you. But after about 6 months, then they jump on you again out of the blue. Because they say, the threat of punishment isn't here. They haven't jumped on you, you haven't felt the need to be intimidating to them. They jump on you again, you punch them again, or you do whatever you do, and they say, okay, I'm not going to jump anymore. Because only when the threat is there. Don't go punching animals.
The punishment remains in place.
Don't go punching anyone.
Okay. So, we've got, on the one hand, our laws saying that the laws of learning are universal, and on the other hand, we've got this idea that all dogs are different. Okay, now, I'm going to expand a little bit on that. All dogs are different. So, yes and no. Yes. The yes is some dogs find things reinforcing which other dogs don't.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely.
So, fairly typical Labrador, okay, or Golden Retriever, a fairly typical one, because there's always going to be will like contact. Staffordshire Bull Terriers are the same for it as well, so they like petting and they like that attention, okay? They really like it.
Definitely.
And whereas an Akita or a livestock guardian, not so much.
Absolutely, they could care less. Adonis didn't care.
The one stimulus, okay, the interaction with the person, one dog finds it reinforcing and the other dog does not.
Yeah, okay. So the lab, what are you getting into? I'm moving, so there's a bunch of moving boxes, and Hermes discovered some of them, and he's trying to get into them. So hopefully that doesn't bother you too much. But Adonis could care less about petting or a good boy or any of that, But there's plenty of people who get away with that with, a Labrador or.
Okay. But that doesn't give us license then to start using a more aversive approach with the Akita
exactly.
or the livestock guardian.
Absolutely.
Okay? So we look at introverts and extroverts. Mm-hmm. So I'm more on the introverted side.
Same.
Okay? I can pretty much, not quite, okay, but I can take or leave human contact, okay, or I want a very specific type of human interaction. Okay, small talk exhausts me. Okay? Like in weddings and parties and stuff like
Same.
that, okay, and having to make small talk with strangers.
Absolutely.
Right?
Unless it's about animals, then I'll talk to you all day long about animals.
Being around people, more extroverted people get a real buzz from that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so. All behaviour is capable, behaviours which are reinforced reoccur, okay?
Yep.
So if we find out what is reinforcing for the dog in that instance, so say for talking sake, our dog doesn't like being around in crowded spaces, okay? The reinforcer for that dog there
would be leaving
more
the area.
space from the other, from the crowd, okay?
Right.
Food might not be reinforcing in that instance, and that's when people start falling foul of this.
Because they say the dog doesn't want to take food, so therefore food is not reinforcing. But food is always going to be reinforcing. Food overcomes fear. The times when your dog does not want to take food does not mean they're not reinforced by food. It just means in that moment there are more things, more stimuli going on in the environment that overpowers their want to take food. Either they're full or they're sick, or it's just not a high enough reward. If you're trying to get your dog's attention off of a squirrel because you're using basic kibble or a milk bone, of course it's not going to do it. You could even try a piece of steak, but if the dog normally goes for steak, because it never gets it, but there's a squirrel there, it still doesn't mean that the dog is not motivated by food. It just means that you're too over threshold. The dog is over threshold. They're not going to take food no matter what. Just like if they're, that would be an example of them being overexcited. If they're overly nervous, if they're at the vet's office, they're in a crowded environment. Just because you can find a way to reinforce a dog, which you can by removing them from a crowded environment, doesn't mean that that's really going to be your best option for reinforcing a behavior.
Because they're trying to use things which are not reinforcing for the dog in that moment, okay? So I like a good burger, the same as lots of people do, okay? It's one of my favourite meals, a really well-made burger, okay? But if somebody is chasing me down the street, okay, threatening my life, not so much, Okay?
Absolutely.
If I'm in the middle of, if I'm in the gym and I'm lifting weights, or I'm training, and somebody offered me a burger, no, probably not so much.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very specific, Logan, good boy, very specific instances where I find those items reinforcing or not. But that doesn't mean that if you're trying to motivate me using the burger, in one instance, that doesn't mean that you get licensed to then start giving me a hard time. You then need to pick your reinforcers better, okay?
And even in this instance here, where he has this example where he's out here, I didn't know he had a dog. His dog is out there running around. He calls him back. He says, "Good boy," and then the dog, I assume, is just able to go continue sniffing. So the recall is still reinforced after, I'm sure, lots and lots of practice. The dog is still reinforced in being allowed to sniff, even if that means, when I call your name, you still stay close to me, but the dog is still able to sniff and be off leash and be a dog.
You'll see people that will say things like with Malinois and working line German Shepherds that I mentioned before, and they'll say, yeah, but these dogs need a heavier hand. All right?
No, they don't.
So
the human does.
Most of them love a ball. Most of them play tug really well,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and most of them love food. And I turn around at that stage and go, if you can't train a dog who likes those three things, those three reinforcers which we can control, you're seriously doing something wrong.
Absolutely.
Then start to use aversive training like prong collars and e-collars, okay, and corrections, all right? Okay, so just finally on that, it's working out what's your dog, what is reinforcing for your dog in that moment, okay? Mm-hmm. And then attaching a behaviour to that. So, okay.
He's got a little sweater. He's just playing with his ball. He's in a nice fenced area. He's got his dog with the harness, with his Kong. He's got his little shirt on to keep him warm and dry. I love it. And it's it looks like a little pitty. Maybe it's a staffy. Super cute.
So we've been playing for the last. So he's done a big search out here. He's been searching we've done article searches for
very cool
15 minutes, and then he's played in his rope swing. Okay, he's tired, and what he now needs is a nap and a big drink of water. Okay, to get him in and get him relaxed. And he's starting to actually regulate himself here. This is quite nice.
Oh, what a cutie pie.
If I wasn't to recognise that that's what he needs in this moment, and then I start asking him to do something which he can't do or hasn't got the training for,
very important.
Our reinforcers are wrong, and that's when people turn around and say, yeah, but all dogs are different, okay?
Very good point. Very good point. There's when we ask if a skill is too much, or if they know the skill, say a sit, for instance, they know how to sit in any room of the house, and even in the backyard, but you move to the front yard and something totally different, or they know that, but they're not going to sit when they're in a vet's office when you tell them, or they're not going to sit when they're on the scale. A metal scale is something new. They're not used to that. It's different context. They're not going to sit when they're on an escalator in the elevator. Or they may not be able to in that moment because you haven't prepared them for that. You haven't taught them that is possible, and you take time. Of course, anything is possible if you force it enough, but he makes a really good point there.
What motivates them, but they can be motivated, and positive reinforcement training works on all of them.
Absolutely.
Okay, very lastly, his favourite thing is this. Okay? That's his favourite thing in the world. And a lot of time, years ago when I started working with him and I posted more content about him, people would say, what's in the Kong? Okay, is there food in the Kong? And I'm like, no, he just likes it. Okay, so Logan.
Likes to just chew on it. It's fun. It's, oh my goodness, look at that little face.
He just likes the opportunity to do that. Okay. That's it. That's all he wants to do. He wants to jump up, grab it, hold it in his mouth, carry it. Okay, and it's his favourite thing in the world.
That's awesome.
And he gets to decide that, not me.
Absolutely.
Well, no, I'd rather you had steak, pal. That's not me. He gets to decide it. Okay.
Absolutely. Very good point. That yes, the dog decides what is reinforcing. So whereas I would love to be able to have Adonis, in his younger days, be a dog or a ball dog. I'd love for him to be able to just go chase a ball. That wasn't for him. That wasn't enough of a reward to do, to work outside. Could I build up his play drive? Sure. But in the end, he was a food, a food dog and a very spoiled food dog. And I'm fine with that. I also used the Premack principle, where an example is for children, you eat your vegetables, then you get your dessert. You do something for me, something you may not necessarily like, something that you don't understand why you're doing it, and then we get into other ethics of like, it's good for you, this and that. But you do something you don't necessarily like that makes sense to me, and then I let you do something that you do like that may not make so much sense to me, but more sense to you. For a dog, when you can relate it to a dog, I would use the Premack principle. If you walk on a loose leash for a period of time until we get to the park, then you can go sniffing and I'll put you on a long line or whatever. As long as you're not pulling me, you can go sniff and do things that dogs do that I don't necessarily care about. You do something for me, I do something for you. That's as you move more into your advanced training, that's where you go to, Okay.
So just a few thoughts there. Yes, the motivators for the dogs are different, but no, not all dogs are different, because if we know what we're doing, positive reinforcement training works on all dogs.
Absolutely. All dogs, all cases.
All dogs.
So I love that. I really like this video. I think this was great. I'm definitely going to go subscribe to Mr. Glasgow here. Love the message that he's putting out there. He's simple, to the point. He's out here with his dog, just having fun. His dog is just having a simple life. When it comes to people who train with aversive tools on dogs, they see it as they actually have the easy job, because they just train the dog. It's easy to train a dog. It's difficult to train the human that owns the dog. That's what takes skill. That's what takes understanding of not only your own species, but another species. And you have to work out what works for both of them. So I think that's where a lot of people who use aversive fail, is they don't want to take the time to help the human understand. It's easier just to train a dog, especially using punishment. It is so easy. Adonis was not a good example of a dog that worked well with punishment. He did not work well with punishment. He would punish you back and 10 times harder. And I love him for that. So, thanks for watching. I definitely enjoyed this video. Thank you for sending it to me as a suggestion. Hope you all are doing well. If you want to go support Mr. Glasgow, please do. Let me know what you thought of this video, and be sure to stay nice and warm. Give your little critters some kind of loving. Say how to do for me. Until next time, practice peace, patience, and positivity.